Okay, take two. February 5th, 2021, day 36 of reading your Bible through in a year. Today's reading is Leviticus 14 and 15. Now, if you're still believing in the Bible, this is the time to now quit after this chapter. This chapter is talking about purification after Hansen's disease, which they used to call leprosy. According to Leviticus 14, a priest is able to diagnose and in some cases treat Hansen's disease. The priest, there's rules in here as to how to tell if it's Hansen's disease or if it's not. And because nobody knew anything about anything medical back then, it was all just a guess. And instead of saying it was just a guess, they're going to say, oh, this was yesterday. Today is the day where he's actually going to treat the Hansen's disease. Okay, it's saying he shall be brought to the priest who is outside the camp to examine him. If the priest finds that the sore of Hansen's disease has been healed, he shall order the man who is to be purified to get 2 live clean birds as well as some cedar wood, scarlet yarn, and hyssop. The priest shall then order him to slay one of the birds over an earthen vessel with spring water in it. It goes on like that. You know, all the ceremony, you have a live bird and you have a sacrificial bird, and, you dip the bird, it was either dip the bird in oil or water, and then you let the live bird go out in an open field, and then the other bird you burn it for sacrifice. And this is how you purify somebody with Hansen's disease. This makes no sense. What? And it just basically tells all this, it's, then there's purification, sacrifice, let's see. On the 8th day, you shall take 2 unblemished lambs. Okay, this is where he's still out, he's away from society because he has this, disease that's supposedly so high catching. Let me tell you now, Hansen's disease, what they used to call leprosy, is not, it's hard, really hard to get it. It's not like when I was being brought up in the parochial schools, Hansen's disease was still being called leprosy among the common folk, right? At least the Christians, right? I don't know when it changed in the medical field, but in the vernacular, it was still being called leprosy among the uneducated, which is the Christians. We were still being taught that Hansen's disease was highly, highly contagious, and that's why the people had to be put outside the city walls. That's how come they had to be put in unclean, in the tents that were deemed for unclean people. That's why they were not allowed among the general public. We now know that that's not the case. Our body is typically immune to that. We have we have a natural high defense against it. It's people with autoimmune disorders and people who might just have a low immunity for a short period of time, maybe due to illness or such, or chemotherapy, that are more likely to catch the disease from somebody else. We no longer have the what did they call them? Leper camps? The leper colonies. We no longer have that because we know now, well, first thing, there's not that stigma anymore. Christianity's waning away, but a lot of this that had to do with fear of leprosy had to do with, this Bible, because it was being taught more. Most people were more Christian back then because they had nothing better to do. There was no TV or internet, or radio, so they just listened to what the pastors say, and the pastors are telling them that this Hansen's disease is very, very contagious, and so there was that stigma, and that was all stigmatized because of Christianity. And even to this day, a lot of people will still, because of that holdback, I'm sure they're still teaching in church that this leprosy is highly contagious and all this stuff, and so people still have this stigma to this day. But we're getting better as people get less Christian. Anyway, so all this is about the ritual stuff. So when, you put the Hansen's disease, a person's out, I don't remember how many days. This is just, I can't even remember how many days they said that the person was supposed to be away from society. But it says on the 8th day shall take 2 unblemished male lambs, 1 unblemished yearling, 2/10 of a ephah of fine flour mixed with oil, and perform the purification ceremony. I mean, this is all just magic nonsense. This is all witchcraft. I mean, for as much as Christians like to say they're anti-witchcraft, there is so much witchcraft going on here in Leviticus. It says if a man is poor and can't afford this, he's just supposed to do, something different, give something different for the ritual. Again, this is screaming of cult because all this stuff goes to the priests. Remember, they get, part of the leftover of the ceremonies. And then it talks about if the whole house is deemed unclean because of this Hansen's disease, then you should make, do a ritualistic cleaning. And if anything's in there, you're supposed to, burn the house. Is this where it says to burn the house down? Okay, so if the priest does all this and then the person still has the infection breaks out again, then you're supposed to pull everything out of the house, and I think it even says, okay, yeah, the whole house comes down. I thought that's what it said. And let's see. Okay, this was the funny one. I only listened to this once on audio because it was just too ridiculous. It's chapter 15 in my Bible is headlined "Personal Uncleanness." Speak to the Israelites and tell every man who is afflicted with a chronic flow from his private parts is thereby unclean. So I'm thinking of like a discharge, an abnormal discharge. Any bed on which the man afflicted is unclean. Any piece of furniture is unclean. And everything is unclean. His garments, everything's unclean. Whoever sits on any of the affected items is unclean. So if you sit on the bed, you sit on the furniture. As we know, this is totally untrue. All this is not accurate. And it says, whoever touches the body of afflicted man shall wash his garments, bathe in water, and be unclean until evening. How? What? Why only evening? If the afflicted man spits on a clean man, whatever the spit touches is unclean. It's just weirdo stuff. And of course you have to do the ceremony. You have to bring your turtle doves or pigeons to have a sacrifice to get purified again. When a man has an emission of his seed, when a man ejaculates, he shall bathe his whole body in water and be unclean until evening. I'm assuming this means if he masturbates. If a man lies carnally with a woman, they shall both bathe in water and be unclean until evening. I'm assuming both this ejaculation and this carnal thing. I'm assuming, even though they've already made the Holocaust or whatever, even though this is written after that, I'm assuming it's because it's like a man who has a venereal or a sexually transmitted infection. This one here, we got to throw in the misogyny. We cannot have a daily reading without our daily dose of misogyny. When a woman has her menstrual flow, she shall be in a state of impurity for 7 days. Anyone who touches her shall be unclean until evening. Anything she lies or sits on during her impurity shall be unclean. Whoever touches any article of furniture on which she was sitting shall wash his garments, bathe in the water, and be unclean until evening. You know how much damage this to women, this scripture has done? Because there's still places in the world who practices this menstrual separation, where they actually have to be removed from the house and they can't come in the house. And I recently heard a horror story on NPR about a woman who was raised that way, that I think she was living with her grandmother, and her grandmother just literally threw her out of the house when she started her the first time she started her menstrual cycle. And I'm assuming it happened every month after that, when she was menstruating, that she was literally put out of the house and she had nowhere to go. So she had to sleep outside. If a man dares to lie with her, he contracts her impurity and shall be unclean for 7 days. Every bed on which then he lies also becomes unclean. And of course, then you have to offer up a sacrifice to Moses and Aaron once you're done menstruating. And this is a law of the man who is afflicted with chronic flow or is emission of seed, and thereby becomes unclean, as well for the woman who has her menstrual period. The menstrual period happens every 28 days. Could you imagine having to deal with this? Every 3 weeks you're having to go through this nonsense all again. Your whole life is spent just... It was horrible. I wonder how many women killed themselves because of this. Anyways, Moses, the cult leader. Cults are usually almost always run by men. And they use this Bible and the Old Testament teachings, pick and choose the ones they want, that marginalize women to make the rules of their cult. Anyways, this is my green glass Westmoreland. It says handmade. What would that be? A dove on nest? A robin on nest. This is one from Shirley Smith. Yes, the Shirley Smith, the woman who wrote the only and first and only comprehensive book about hens on nests. You got a little bubble there. Very good condition. Okay, Shirley Smith. That's her sticker. That's the sticker for Westmoreland right there. Green glass. Got this for sale. Okay, and one thing I'm going to put on here is Stray Cat is running for Catster of the Year. He's in voting right now, so I'm going to put a link where you can vote. You can vote one time for every 24-hour period. Not once a day. It's every 24-hour period. So like if you vote at 2 p.m. today, you can't vote again until 2 p.m. tomorrow. And you can also pay for votes, minimum $10. $1, it gives you one vote. So, it's a minimum of $10. So you'll get 10 votes for Stray Cat. But you got to vote for Stray Cat. Click on that link below and vote for Stray Cat. He'll win $5,000 and some other goodies from Catster. And he'll probably be in the magazine. So there you go. And I'll put a link to where you can buy this too. Bye.